My name is Lillian, and I was 26 years old. The night my sister ran away with her lover and left me with her seriously ill 10-year-old son is carved into my memory forever. She stood in my doorway with a suitcase, eyes cold, voice sharp as the rain hammered the windows behind her relentlessly. Her son, Ethan, curled up on my couch, burning with fever, his small chest rattling with every breath. The doctors had warned us his condition was serious, chronic, and completely unpredictable. I was shaking, begging her not to go, to think of her own child, but she laughed, actually laughed, and said words that still echo. "He's your child now." My sister sneered while I cried helplessly, my hands clutching her sleeve until she ripped it away. Then she turned, walked out with her lover, and never looked back once. The door slammed shut, and in that moment my life split forever. I had no idea how to raise a child, let alone a sick one. I worked long hours, barely paid rent, and suddenly was responsible for everything. Medications, hospital visits, school meetings, sleepless nights counting breaths, praying fevers would break soon. Ethan woke screaming from pain, calling for his mother. I held him tightly, whispering lies I hoped would someday become true. I told him she'd return. I told him all would be okay. Sometimes he looked at me with eyes too old for a 10-year-old boy and asked quietly, "Aunt Lillian, did I do something bad?" Each time my heart cracked a little more. Medical bills piled up fast. I sold my car, then my jewelry, then anything not nailed down. Friends drifted away when I kept canceling plans. My sister never called, not once. No money, no questions, no messages. She erased her son completely. At night, when Ethan slept, I sat at the kitchen table surrounded by pill bottles and endless paperwork, wondering how one person could be so cruel. I was angry, terrified, exhausted, but above all, determined. I refused to let him feel abandoned again. Years passed in a blur of hospitals and rebuilt hope. Ethan grew taller, thinner, stronger than doctors predicted. He learned to manage illness with discipline that humbled me. He studied hard, driven by something fierce inside. I worked 2 jobs to keep us afloat. There were nights I cried in the shower so he wouldn't hear my tears. Mornings I smiled through exhaustion. People said I was throwing my life away, should have called social services, forced my sister to step up. Maybe they were right, but every time he smiled, every time he accidentally called me mom and blushed, I knew my choice. 17 years later, my sister reappeared suddenly, like a ghost from the past. She arrived at a family gathering dressed in expensive clothes, dripping with confidence, acting as if nothing happened. She hugged relatives, laughed loudly, then turned casually toward me. Her eyes searched the room. With a light tone, she asked, "What happened to the poor boy she'd left behind years ago?" She said it like asking about an old, forgotten pet. My hands trembled, but I stayed silent. The room felt too small, the air too thick. Then the door opened and a tall, handsome man in a suit entered quietly. His presence silenced everyone instantly. He walked straight toward me, placed a gentle hand on my shoulder, and smiled. My sister's face turned pale. The room froze completely when he stepped into the light. My sister's confident smile shattered. She recognized him instantly, before he even spoke a word. He adjusted his jacket calmly and looked at me warmly. "Aunt Lillian," he said proudly, "I'm here." Gasps rippled through the room. This was Ethan, the seriously ill 10-year-old she had abandoned. He had grown into a man who commanded silence effortlessly. My sister staggered backward, whispering his name in disbelief. "That's not possible," she muttered. What happened to the poor boy she had asked so casually? Now the answer stood before her. Alive, strong, successful, completely out of her reach. Ethan didn't rush to her. He didn't hug or shout. He looked calm, finished. He told the room his story, his achievements, his career, how he built a life despite doctors doubting survival. He spoke of discipline, resilience, and the woman who stayed. When he turned to my sister, his voice remained steady. He repeated her own words. "He's your child now." The room went completely silent. He explained how those words became his fuel through pain. He learned family is who stays when leaving would be much easier. My sister tried to interrupt, tears falling, excuses tumbling. Ethan listened politely, then shook his head gently. "You don't get to rewrite the story," he said clearly. "You walked away. She stayed." He gestured toward me. In that moment, every sacrifice rushed back like a wave. I felt pride, deep, unshakable. My sister collapsed, sobbing, asking if anything could be fixed. Ethan didn't humiliate her. He spoke the simple truth. Some choices create distances time cannot undo. He wished her peace, then turned away quietly. No dramatic revenge, just consequences that linger forever. As whispers filled the room, Ethan leaned down and hugged me, the tight, familiar hug of the boy I once held. "You saved my life," he whispered softly. I wanted to say he saved mine too, but words caught in my throat. Later that night, at home, I sat in the same kitchen where I once stared at bills, terrified of tomorrow. The fear was gone. In its place came certainty. Real love doesn't always look heroic. Sometimes it looks like staying. Sometimes it looks like exhaustion, sacrifice, choosing every single day. My sister asked about the poor boy she left. He became everything she never believed possible, and everything I always knew he was.